Hello everyone, it is Holly and I am back with another reading 1-star reviews video. I'm thinking about moving you. Okay, that works. Oh, you can see my little polar bear. Hi, Franny. Please don't. Franny, that's not for kitties to eat. No. Anyways, so I am back with another reading 1-star reviews video. So I did this years ago, where I read 1-star reviews of some of my favorite books. I don't remember exactly what I reacted to. I'm pretty sure Addicted to You was one of them. But yes, so I have 4 on this list. I don't know if we're going to go through all 4 of them. It depends on how it goes. We may go up to 2-star reviews if 1-star doesn't work. There's one that, because technically it's the second in a series, I'm not sure it's going to have low reviews like that. But I feel more strongly about it. I wanted to kind of do like 5-star reads for this. So I'm sure I said this in that previous video. I feel like I'm going to get into Goodreads on my iPad. I, as a general rule, don't have a problem with low ratings. Hi, Franny. I think that bad negative reviews have a place. Yes, negative reviews. I think that negative reviews have their place. So I have read negative reviews and thought that somebody else didn't like in a book, I would like in a book. And so to me, negative reviews have their place, and I read negative reviews sometimes if I'm up in the air about something, and it will convince me to read something. I also, I love Elliot Brooks. She recommends books she doesn't enjoy, and I really appreciate that. I think it's really important. I mean, everybody, you can do whatever you want. You're all your own individual people. But I kind of wish more reviewers, more book content creators were comfortable, one, speaking negatively about things, see previous points, but we're also comfortable recommending something that they didn't like, because just because you don't like something doesn't mean somebody else won't, you know? And it's just like, there are authors I love who have written books I don't like, or I DNF, or like, that happens, and that is okay. It is okay. So I just think these are fun videos. I try not to be like confrontational with them. So the first one we're gonna do is Morning Glory Milking Farm by C.M. Nascosta. I did not realize there was an S in there at the beginning. Which actually, this is saying I gave it 4 stars. In my heart, this is a 5-star. Goodreads has it at just over 20,000 reviews with a 3.88. I listened to this on audio, but I do plan on buying a physical copy of it. I got it from my library. This is like a monster romance. This was really the first monster romance I really enjoyed. I'm gonna first see if any of my friends or like people I follow hated it. Okay, Stephanie from Steph's Romance Book Talk, she rated it 1 star and DNF'd it. Okay, so we're gonna, so she DNF'd at 20%, 1 star, 0 Steam fans. Not actually 0 Steam fans because it is steamy, but I'm guessing because she DNF'd it. She says, monster erotica is not for everyone. If you don't mind personal pleasure time described in depth from instructional videos on how to jack off a bull, then you may enjoy this book. I could not get past that part to find any enjoyment in this story. Okay, so this is 100% a valid, I mean, obviously everybody's opinions are valid, but I think this is a perfect example, even though she DNF'd, she still like reviewed it, of why negative reviews are good. Like, I feel like this is something that people would read this and be like, yeah, that's gonna make me uncomfortable. I'm not gonna want to read that. That's silly. Like, that's stupid. This, beautiful. I mean, I like Steph, so I'm not surprised I would appreciate her 1 star. Okay, Chandler rated it 3 stars, but I'm still just said the world, delightful. 24 ounce of bull semen, not so much. This world is beautiful. It is such like, it is very sexy, very steamy, very explicit. It is what you think it's going to be in that concept from the title, but it is so cozy and comfortable, and like it just gives me like warm, like a warm hug feeling. I don't know. Okay, so I'm trying to do just 1 stars. Okay, so there are 371 1-star ratings and reviews. Okay, so one says, I read it, that's all. Somebody wrote, if anyone needs me, I'm bleaching this book from my memories. This book could kill a Victorian child. Cliche romance, cringe sex, panties dry. I mean, I don't really consider my panties in my enjoyment of books, but I know some people feel different about that. I read this book because I lost a bet. I'm assuming the author was being paid for use of the words foreskin and frenulum based on how often she brought them up. The plot revolving around milking was just no. The worst part was that this could have been a cute romance if it hadn't been so absolutely bonkers. Something that bothered me throughout was that the author constantly noted that it wasn't a sexual process to the technicians or the clients who just needed the money, but never addressed why they couldn't just do it themselves. It's a no for me. Oh, okay. So this actually, if I had like a negative, is I felt like there was like a lack of world building in here. So agree. Sometimes, I mean, she says she's reading it because she lost a bet, but I do think it's funny because like, what did you think it was gonna be? Also, based on this and another book that we're gonna talk about, I am like a sucker for a bonkers romance. So like, and that's what I'm saying, like a 1-star review, like for me, like I'd be like, yes, this is my shit. Okay, so when you stare into the void, they say it stares back, but sometimes the void winces as it hovers above you, threatening to crash and burn like the Hindenburg, while the shadow cast from its sheer size grows ever darker. As it slowly descends upon your direction, you stare up, transfixed on how something so massive can completely swallow the sun, and briefly, horrifically, you question if it isn't just the sun that has been blown out, but instead all of the stars in the night sky. Is this the end of the world? Is this the final day that now that all of the light has been seemingly snuffed out? But then the shadow twitches with meek desperation, and you realize that it is just a massive minotaur penis, and you work in a milking farm, and you're simply standing below an elevated chair above you, spare for a glory hole. Sighing, you squirt lube on your hands, ready to collect the daily quota of milk. What a completely normal book. I have no idea how to rate this. And somebody commented and said, didn't say you hated it though, did ya? That was, I feel like I could never be this creative in my reviews. This one says, before you ask, why am I reading this? TikTok made me do it. Still, what the fuck did I just read? The writing is surprisingly good. Comments like that bother me. I don't know. There's like this perception that if you write erotica, which I wouldn't even put in that field, close but not quite, or romance or anything bonkers, like that means that you have poor writing, and I don't love that connotation. Oops, sorry. But whatever. But the story is so surreal, it's impossible to take seriously. I think that's what I like about it. A semen milking farm for minotaurs. I mean, that's a 10 on a scale of weird to WTF, that's kinky shit. But then you get some really trashy, you have no idea how trashy we are talking about, sex scenes about big fat bull. I can't say that word. C's. I've never been, this is like a long-standing thing. My college roommate used to make fun of me because I couldn't say that word. I'm not even kidding. The MC says this line every 2 pages, and that's where I laughed so much I could not breathe for a solid 5 minutes. Here I thought I was now immune to weird books since I jumped into the monster alien romances rabbit hole, but it seems this one was drawing the line for me. And that's good. That's important. It's good to know where your lines are. I'm sorry, but no. I understand some people love a good animal humanoid. I don't know if this is considered a furry book. For me, he was just a little too animal to get into. No judgment for those who love this, just not my thing. I don't disagree. Like, and I think that's, again, why 1-star reviews are good. I think there's a line. You know, there's people that are happy that Belle is always with the beast in his beast form, and there are people who wish it was Adam. That's not really his name. He doesn't have a name, but people just assume it's Adam. That alone was not why I gave the book 1 star, but I was constantly confused. The book jumped so much that I had to keep going back to reread the chapter. Also, the author went into detail on the milking sessions, but then skimmed over the more intimate outside the factory scenes. I felt shortchanged by the end. Also would have loved a bit more world building. However, I understand that that was not the style of this book. I think that's an awesome 1-star review. I agree with some of those things. As somebody who gave it like 4 stars, feels it's a 5 in her heart, maybe. And I'd have to reread it to see if I agreed with the milking scenes are pretty graphic. I was happy with the intimate scenes, but I also can see where you would say that. I think this is an awesome 1-star review. Again, a perfect example of why 1-star reviews can be good. Let's actually go to another kind of bonkers romance. And that is The Orc from the Office by Kate Pryor. So this is the second book in this series. The first one I didn't love as much as this. This book gave me life. So this book, I think Ruby Dixon had mentioned it in her Facebook group or like her Facebook page or whatever. And so I got the first one and then I got this one. It has just over 5,500 ratings. It's an average 3.8. I gave it 5 stars. I want to buy a physical copy. Okay, so first we'll see, okay, friends and stuff. So this is 2 stars, but I'll read it because it's like a friend. Met, lots of office jargon, very little actual romance or chemistry. I felt like the author was telling me the characters were in love, but I didn't see it. Okay. I love office jargon. I think that was part of why I really enjoyed this. It felt very bonkers. It felt like you were reading something, I don't know, it was so weird. It was so over the top and yet so grounded in like reality. Like there's all this like weird shit happening, but these people are just going to work every day. It's just so funny. To me, that's hilarious. Okay. 1 star. Oh, there are 1 stars. Okay, so there's 69 1-star reviews. Okay, this one says office setting. I didn't feel any romance between the 2 main characters, hardly any dialogue between the 2 as well. I found the writing to be choppy and didn't flow for me personally. First person only from the heroine, would have loved to hear the hero's thoughts. I always agree with that. Always want dual POV, or like a third person with both. But again, good to know in a review. Oh, this one has spoilers. Let's see. Okay, so this one, I feel like this one might be a little spicy. Okay. After reviewing my thoughts to write this, I think I borderline hated this book. I definitely hated Janice, the female main character, and wasn't a huge fan of the male main character, Kent, either, but he could have been worse. This book went so slow for me and felt a bit boring, in my opinion. That's interesting because it's a novella, so I feel like it going slow could sway if you want to pick it up or not. I didn't feel that way, but again, valid opinion. It took me a week to read because I really just did not want to keep reading it. There were only a few spicy scenes. Most of their relationship was off page. I was confused about how time was passing, how long they were hooking up, how long they were broken up. Janice makes Kent sound stupid, or at least like she thinks he is. I think so. I think it's supposed to be like a nerd doesn't know about the relationships thing, but it came across mean and off-putting to me. There were also just weird moments in the book, like I didn't know orcs could Spider-Man on the sides of buildings, but okay. Also get off the side of the building, then have this incredibly anticlimactic conversation. Then I didn't even notice when the book was over because it didn't seem like it had an ending, and then the Kindle version just rolled into an excerpt of another book. Okay, so a lot of people, so another person says only about 130 pages, but this really dragged. There's tons of unnecessary, boring detail about human resources and IT computer stuff, which I already had negative feelings about. It really affected my enjoyment of the story. Like I said earlier, that's one of the things I liked about it. I know this is insta-love fated mates, but our couple had no chemistry. The orc is a beta male to the point which he is just so bland and boring. The smut was not good. In these monster lover books, I expect more description because of the different anatomy. That's the whole point. We may have different perceptions. The smut could have been between two humans. There's a massage scene that was nice. Most of the relationship is off page. The audiobook narrator was also bad. She takes unnecessary pauses, and even with it sped up, it sounds funny. Oh, interesting. I just read the book, so I can't speak to the audiobook at all. That probably would bother me too. I can see why people would expect something different from the sexy scenes from a monster romance. That's not how I kind of view all my romance to be the same in that regard. So okay, yeah, so this one's similar. It started out cool enough, but it got boring very quickly. Also, I was expecting good smut, but this book has some of the worst I've seen. So much wasted potential. Heroine was taking heroes ginormous because he's a 10 feet tall, I can't say that word, with no foreplay, without lube, in a pool, in their first penetrative sexual encounter. Didn't notice, but you're not wrong. This was the most secondhand embarrassing lack of communication chaos I've ever read. They fucked on the side of a building. Good at the start. After a few chapters, it was very boring and I couldn't finish it. So a lot of people never had read anything orc and was curious. Definitely not my thing. You gotta find out somehow, I guess. Everything else is just ratings. I'm wondering if I don't think any of those people had read the previous book, so I guess, which is fine. You don't have to. I mean, you meet Janice in the previous one and stuff, but you definitely don't have to have read it. So that's fine. I do think it's interesting that so many people said it was boring. I'm trying to think. It's been a while since I read this, almost a year. And I feel like what I remember, I can see why people would find it boring, but it was those boring parts that I enjoyed. Again, everybody has their thing, you know? Okay, we'll just do one more. Let's do Blade of Secrets by Tricia Levenseller. I feel like this book was pretty popular. So we'll see. I've actually read it twice, I believe. Yes, I read it again, I believe, before the second book. So it has 10,000 reviews. Wow, I feel like this was more popular than that. Maybe just in like the circles I'm in. 3.99. Okay, first, friends. A lot of people added it, but haven't actually read and rated it. Okay, 1 star. 122. Okay, so the first one's DNF, but let's see. I will say, full disclosure, I have given all but one Tricia Levenseller book I've read 5 stars. The Shadows Between Us, I think I gave 3. It is the only one I did not like. So I am trash for Tricia Levenseller's writing. Blade of Secrets is by far my favorite. DNF at 26%. This is what I get for stepping out of my comfort zone. The book isn't necessarily bad, but definitely not good. Perfect girl that believes she's dull and average, check. Love interest that is mysterious, so beautiful that she wants to touch him, lol what. Tall, all the girls swoon over him, check. Smart and cultured, though she never really got formal attention, but she just knows things, check. OMG, the list of cringy tropes goes on and on. I thought we left those in 2012. Anyway, yeah, DNF for me. So, do you ever read an author that is so consistently bad that you wonder how they keep getting away with it? I was hoping that The Shadows Between Us was a fluke, considering how popular Levenseller is, but nope, Blade was equally stupid. This legitimately reads like a 12-year-old child wrote it. People are saying it reads like middle grade, but I disagree. Even children deserve better stories. DNF'd. Okay. I got no comments. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions. Okay. Oh, this one is so long. Bro, is everyone actually out of their fucking minds? Why would you give this fucking shit show 5 stars? What? Did we read the same book? Hello. Line level, this was bad. It was awkward and jaunty, attempting to be clever and relatable without garnering any emotional appeals. It was all telling and no showing, and the structure felt wildly repetitive and unoriginal. Similarly, the same beats were played over and over again. They're on the road. Whoa, everything is fine. Actually, whoa, what's-his-face is surprisingly gentle with our MC, and there's a hetero connection. Whoa, she's anxious. Whoa, they're attacked. Whoa, they're super amazing. though, so it's fine, and they find a safe place. Whoa, safe place becomes unsafe, and a character who isn't our main character pays the consequences. Whoa, this could have been a short story. Who the fuck approved this? It was childish. The spawn of this fucking story felt like it was meant for elementary school children. I'm not fucking kidding. A bully is super angry. Oh noes. Their lives are ruined. Okay, I can't keep reading this. So I just like, I will say at the end, they say, forgot to mention that I despise the anxiety rep. It was her whole personality, and it treated anxiety as something childish and silly, despite trying to obviously insist otherwise. It was hurtful and harmful. Furthermore, the attempt to remedy the ace phobia with the single line about not liking people just doesn't justify all the shitty language that came before that point. Fuck you. Okay, so I think this is interesting because one of the reasons I like this book is because of the anxiety rep, which this is one of those things that I feel like is, when you talk about representation in books, I always find it to be a very complicated thing because there's the conversation of like, who can comment on representation? But even then, nothing is a monolith. So like for me, this was an amazing representation of what my experience with anxiety is like. I felt seen, but I can see how other people wouldn't. I didn't view it as her whole personality. I can see why you would think that though. I think a lot of her life has become kind of about hiding and being with her anxiety, and her sister not necessarily knowing how to handle it, but her sister not being harmful, just not fully understanding. I don't get the ace phobia part that they're saying, but sure. Disappointing and frankly boring plot. The world building was terrible because it wasn't there. I definitely think there's not a lot of world building. I don't think Tricia Levenseller does a lot of world building. I think it's kind of one of those things. There are certain fantasy books that are going to be very heavy on world building and some that aren't. And for me, they both can work for me. I just have to be in the right mood for whichever one I'm reading. But some people aren't like me, so that's fine. The main character has some serious social anxiety issues. However, her anxiety is literally her whole personality, and most of the plot, it's all she monologues about, and she is such a flat, boring character. People are more than their anxiety. The main character is also useless. She has magic, but never thinks about how she could use it to help their situation. She doesn't think to once maybe learn how to defend herself whilst being chased down by a warlord. She is also quite judgy. She immediately judges her sister and Kellen. I mean, okay, so I hate going in and like trying to argue, but reviews, because I think they're valid, but I'm going to argue this one. I think, again, with the anxiety, I think she has behaviors that people might be contributing to her anxiety that I don't interpret that way. Like, they are just her personality separate from it. Yeah, she has magic, but I don't understand why does she even have to use it? Like, part of the book to me is she feels responsible for her sister, and like she has to make sacrifices and do these things for her sister. But I also think part of the story is her learning that she doesn't have to do those things. And so, I don't know. And then I think she is judgy. She's also a teenager, and I think most people are judgy. Given how sisterly bonds is so important in this book, it would have been better if it was a dual POV between both sisters. Seeing how they are both so different, it would have been interesting to contrast how they both feel with each situation. I actually feel like that would be very interesting to see both of their perspectives on everything. That either I think that would have made this stronger, or I think it would be interesting. People would probably say it was a money grab, but if Tricia Levenseller wrote this from her sister's POV, I think that would have been interesting, because everybody's perspective is different. The romance is also very boring and cringy. I've surprised myself with how many times I wrote the word boring. I think the romance So I assume they mean the romance of the main character, because there's like a couple of romances in it. I think it's a little cliche. It's expected. But your girl is rarely going to be bothered by that. So, oh, this one's going to be interesting. The writing style reminds me of Sarah J. Maas, and just like with her style, it's not for me. Too bad. The premise on the desk cover sounded amazing, but it's just too plain. The dialogues are rather juvenile, or I'm just too old. Practically no world building. Characters are simple structured, and while it seems to play in a medieval type of world, the language used reminds me more of a bunch of teenage kids in high school today. Okay, I'm just trying to think about some things. So when it's funny because I don't particularly like Sarah J. Maas. I have finished ACOTAR, the whole series. I read 3, if you count the prequel novellas, of Throne of Glass, and I hated Selena. I have no desire to read the Crescent City books. I will watch Carrie do videos on them though. So yes. So it's interesting. I can see how you would connect the two. That's interesting. Why don't I like Sarah J. Maas, but I like Trisha Levenseller's writing? I do feel like they kind of have a similar style in like that. Yes, sometimes it's like dumbed down language, which never really bothers me in my books. I don't think you have to have like fancy writing just because it's like a fantasy. That's just like me personally though. They're very romance heavy. I don't know. There's just something about Trisha Levenseller that works for me. Again, I think the world building is pretty minimal. I do think the characters are a little simple. I think that this is probably, I think Trisha Levenseller, her books for me, I'm always afraid to reread them because I am afraid that like I won't like them upon a reread, because it's like my first read, although I did reread Blade of Secrets and I enjoyed it the second time. I feel like it might be the kind of book that I like devour the first time and I'm just like sucked into it, and then the second time I start finding like flaws, so I like kind of avoid rereading them, but it works for me. So okay, can I find one more? Okay, so this one, okay, I really wanted to like this book because I loved her other books, but I was just so disappointed. At the beginning, I was really excited for this book because the character was a lot like me, introverted, hates people, asexual. But then she wasn't asexual. This was the part that bothered me the most. She is presented at the beginning as never having felt sexual attraction, being almost averse to it, and not quite understanding her sister's interest in boys or romance. She then had the moment where it was, then I saw him and my worldview changed and I felt for the first time. That was heartbreaking to me because it felt a lot like when people say, oh, you don't know that you're asexual because you just haven't met the right person yet. It was queer baiting. I think that's a little extreme. It was heartbreaking to me. Aside from that, the plot felt flat, rushed, and the whole situation with her family was just weird. The ending, I think, was also really bad. It felt like the story could have been wrapped up in 15 or 20 more pages. I would honestly give this a lower rating than 1 if I could. So I think this is interesting, and maybe this is what the other person was trying to get at, but this just like clicks with my brain more. I remember when I first started reading this, I thought that maybe she was going to be asexual as well, and I definitely don't think it was queer baiting. I think that term gets thrown around a lot more than it should. But I think it's perfectly valid that this person feels this way and that they feel almost betrayed. At the same time, I kind of feel like Trisha Levenseller writes romance, like young adult romance fantasy, so I'm not sure I would have expected anything different from her. I almost think people would have been more disappointed if she didn't go that route. This could have been solved with that dual POV thing, because then maybe our main character here could have been asexual and stayed that way, and then her sister could have had her romance and you would have still satisfied that like romance itch. I didn't read Ziva that way. So I said earlier, I did kind of wonder if she would be asexual. And I guess looking back on it, maybe it's just because you look at things the way you live your life, right? Like in a lot of ways, it's easy to default to whatever your perspective is on things. So when Ziva is saying the things that she is about who she is, how she feels, I'm not looking at it as her possibly being asexual necessarily, like the way that that reviewer was. But that's because we come at it from different life experiences, different life perspectives. So that is interesting. I think it would have been an interesting story had she been asexual, and been not, like, even if you have who becomes her romantic interest in the story, but maybe they just are friends. And I think I viewed it, is it called demisexual, where like you are attracted to people, but like only once you get to know them? That was kind of how I viewed her, like if we're gonna go down that way. I think Ziva was very afraid of feeling anything for anybody in any way, and so I think that played a huge part in her character and everything. But again, my perspective, you know? So I don't know, I was very rambly with that one. But that is me reacting to some 1-star reviews of some of my favorite books. I do plan on doing this again. I already have one carryover that I'll do, and I'll try to think of some more. Or maybe I'll read some 5 stars soon. So yes, like I said, negative reviews, 1-star reviews can always be good. They can steer people away from something that would be harmful for them or not enjoyable for them, but they can also steer people towards books because they learn that there are things in it that they do enjoy. My legs are falling asleep now. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.